I actually talked long enough that it all worked. So there you go.
Oh, Alex, great!
First
you
time.
You talked long enough.
That's a technical term for talking long enough. And we're going to get this started right about... What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of different places on the internet. We're live over on YouTube, the Tube. Maybe it's going to work this week. We'll see what happens. Or we're live on Crowdcast, the cast, as I call it. Or maybe you're listening to this later on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. It is all good, and we appreciate you checking it out. And we have a great show for you all tonight. There's a lot to do, a lot to talk about, but why don't we kick it off with this? Once a month, we give a big thank you to folks in our Patreon, patreon.com/comicbookclub, who support our show at the $5 and up level. The ones below that, we thank you as well. You're also supporting it, but we give a special shout out here, and we're going to kick it off by reading all their names, giving tribute to them, starting it off with Otis Larson,
Aaron C. Hollis,
Adam DeRose,
Adam Harwitz,
Adam Marks,
Adriel Moreland,
Elena Fontenot,
Amanda Harris,
Amy Gonzalez,
Andrew Primo,
Andrew Tillman,
Beercat PhD,
Benjamin Brown. Do you need a break, Justin?
Carly
why don't you
W.
guys take it for one
Yeah,
second?
we got it. Okay, you did Carly W. I'm going to do Chris Leatherman.
Christina Germilo,
This is your nightmare, Pete. Chris Terlizzi,
Clemens Luer,
Curtis LaRock,
Deman Ryan,
Damian Becton,
Dan Snow,
Daniel Cabral,
Daniel Fuentes,
Danny Heck,
Debbie Gloom,
Dennis Scott,
Derek Mainhart,
Dylan L.J.,
Eduardo Martinez,
Emmett Quish,
Aaron Doran,
Jeffrey Risher,
Gerard De Villiers,
Isaac Carter,
Jake Fry.
Oh, there we go.
James Connolly,
James Kurtz,
Jason Donahue,
Jeffrey Whaley,
John George,
Jonathan Jong,
Jonathan McCool,
Joshua Gibson,
Joshua W. Broxson,
Julian Labato,
Catherine Anderson,
BC New Haven,
Kevin Grimes,
Kevin Kleinrock,
Kieran Broderick,
Cody Thomas,
Kyle,
Lee Brown,
Luana Thomas,
Lucas Singh,
Mark Zeller,
Matt Tice,
Megan Thigpen,
Michael Tillman,
Mitchell McDonald,
Nathaniel Diaz,
Nelso Kelso,
Nick Grayson,
Off-White Savior,
official CBC chef Brett Macris,
Omnia Soul Art,
Oren Dix,
Pablo Martinez,
Pedro A. Rangel,
Pete's Pretty Kitty,
that makes sense, Primetime Paulie G,
Rev Mikey,
Robert Pentia,
whoop,
Pedinato,
Yeah.
Sarah Schopmuller,
Sarah Schaefer,
Scott Carpenter,
Scott England,
Sherry Rudnick,
Stanley,
Mila Rush,
Taylor Bryan,
Terrible Jason,
The Big Flood,
The 12 Bench,
Thomas Glenn,
Victor Perez,
Will Buchanan,
and Zika's Viral Comics.
and I also want to give a shout out to my friend Pete LePage for doing his ultimate nightmare by switching up the order of the names halfway through doing it. Pete, you did an amazing job.
For those
You
who
nailed
don't
it.
know, Pete memorizes the names. He doesn't read them off of a list. And so when we break the pattern, it can get confusing fast.
Mm-hmm.
And astute listeners will also notice that when he doesn't know how to say the name, he drips into some sort of Italian accent. Like,
Yeah. Regardless, thank you so much for everybody who supports us over at Patreon. Seriously, we could not keep this show going without you. We really appreciate it. Another thing that we'd like to hear is folks leaving us comments and suggestions in Apple Podcasts in the comments there. Leave a rating, 5 stars, and of course, and also leave a comment. But if you want to request a book for us to review on the stack, an older book, a trade collection, something we might have missed, you can drop it in there as well. We have a bunch of great requests. Pete's been off the past couple of weeks, so we haven't caught up with him, but we got one this week that we're going to review in the stack. So here we go. From Beef Negamaki says, you better start backing up the produce truck because this pod is bananas good. Glad I found this. Nice hearing 3 sometimes distinctly different points of view, weigh in on the books. Sometimes I wish they covered more books that I was reading, but it's rare they don't review something on my pull list. Overall, a real fun listen weekly and something I look forward to. If I had to request something to have you guys cover, maybe Champions by Mark Waid. And yes, Beef Nagamaki, we are going to cover that on the Stack podcast that drops in the Comic Book Club feed and its own dedicated Stack feed Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Champions by Mark Waid and Humberto Ramos. The first volume of that book. Very fun to revisit it, not to spoil any feelings, but we'll talk about that more on the Stack podcast. Spoiled feelings. And folks, we have 2 amazing guests for you tonight. I want to bring them into the stream now. They are the creators of a new book called TWIG from Image Comics that rules. I'm very excited to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Skottie Young and Kyle Strahm.
Hello.
Skottie and Kyle, hello.
What's up, guys?
Thank you for coming. First of all, I love the matching beards. That's very cute.
Yeah, how do you guys time that out? Because we just can't do it. We can't line them up.
We spend so much time together, we just become one human.
Oh, wow.
So I love this book, Twig. This is great. The second issue is out on stands tomorrow, and this is just such a fun, different, all-ages adventure with some dark weirdness to it. I think when we were reviewing the first issue, we called out similarities to a couple of things. It definitely feels like its own thing, but one inspiration point felt like Bone a little bit. Skottie, what were you calling on, or for both of you when you were working together, what were you calling on when you were creating this book?
Well, this book definitely was 100% the two of us almost at all times from the beginning. You know, it started off Kyle and I having at a kid's birthday party on a porch said, hey, let's do like a cool like Fraggle Rock.
Nice.
Like just name anything from the 80s that we all grew up loving. And we're like, and I was like, Kyle's sketchbook's filled with so much fun, wacky, creepy critters that people don't get to see when he's doing the horror book. You know, at the time it was Spread and Unearth is a big post kind of horror. Everything's kind of a horror tinge, but I was always like, I'm always into is like weird furry critters with butts.
I love
so I was like, man, I want to do a book like, so we just decided. So really that's pretty much what we did. We just kind of mined our whole childhood of every VHS tape we've ever rented and any, you know, novel we read or book comic that we checked out and just kind of improv'd and freestyled and wrote down, and Kyle drew. The first thing Kyle did after we had our conversation was go off and draw about 20 wacky like things that had nothing to do with anything except just coming out of his brain, and I posted those up in front of me and just started writing towards them.
Oh wow,
that's so cool.
Go ahead,
this book feels like recency bias. I want to see this book rolled up in the back of one of the stranger kids' pockets as they're riding their bike towards some horrifying situation, because I feel like that's working with similar bones. The first issue I was like feeling Adventure Time a little bit and stuff that is even like a little more modern than that, but this second issue that comes out tomorrow, we read it and it feels like Dark Crystal. There's that one scene in the machine. I was just like, it's not like you're mimicking it or anything, but It took me back to that time in my life while also enjoying this awesome, great story. It's so good.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about the vibe a lot. We had a lot of conversations about how it should feel, and that vibe was like true north. For me anyway, designing stuff, I might be like, well, that's a little off everything we've talked about. But once we both got into that mindset, I feel like we just, went straight ahead.
Yeah, and if you look, like the machine is like I think the machine is a perfect example, and people will be able to see that tomorrow. But it's a perfect example of such a mashup of all the movies we grew up with, right? I mean, it's a little Ghostbusters, it's a little Weird Science, it's a little Dark Crystal, it's like every movie we watched had some sort of wacky machine in it that was like the MacGuffin machine, and really at the end of the day, we like Kyle said, we kept a vibe, and interestingly enough, we were kind of like we didn't say we're not making an all ages, but we kept saying we're not intentionally making an all ages. We're just making a book. And as we went along, the book kind of just said, here's what it is. And there's, as you can see in the second issue, there's definitely stuff or the end of the first issue. There's definitely stuff along the way where you're like, "Whoo!" But we grew up with that stuff, like heavy stuff in movies. You could have a kids movie with death and dark and scary. You know, it was the nice balance of it all.
Well, I think what Justin is calling out with like the Dark Crystal and stuff, those are things that gave me nightmares as kids. So,
great nightmares.
Yeah.
And you never forgot.
I never forgot. I wanted to ask you about the main character, though, because obviously when you have a main central character going on an adventure like this, their design is very important in particular because you need to glom onto that character immediately. So what went into the back and forth in terms of creating him?
It was awesome. I'm going to let Kyle take it, but it was definitely an awesome ride.
Well, we've shown it here and there before, but after our first conversation, I went away and he didn't have a name or anything. I was just like, I'm Fraggle Rock. I'm going to make a little cave creature. So I drew this sort of hideous little bald cave creature.
Like a chicken nugget.
Yeah. A little naked guy, little penis hanging down. And Skottie's like, I think maybe we put some fur on this guy. So I drew Twig more than anything else. I have sketchbooks filled with pages and pages of different versions of what his shape might be. For a while, he looked kind of like a bird, and he looked like an otter. And I don't even know why. Oh, I know. At one point, there were a bunch of them. There were like warriors, and then there were like those who cultivated things. And the warriors had like bird claws on their hats, and the other part of the society had like little things growing out of their hats, and that's where that came from. But eventually we just back and forth we figured out the look, and once we had it, I did that drawing and Skottie was like, that's it, that's the guy right there. And that's actually the drawing on the cover of the Twig preview that came out a while back.
You knew that at the time Kyle and I were sharing a studio, and he nailed that drawing, and it was great because he hung it up instantly above his desk. And so any day I was writing it, I could just look over and all the stuff was pinned up. So that was really cool to be working on the majority of this series in the same room as Kyle.
Oh, that's awesome.
The other thing, and you touched on this a little bit before, but then there's the world itself, right? Like it's this very natural world with monsters in it, but obviously it isn't anything goes, right? So how do you set out those rules? Do you have a Bible for yourselves to work off of? Is it just sort of the feel of, okay, this is something that exists in the world of Twig or not? How do you decide on that line?
I honestly, like I said, the very beginning was a big sheet of different characters and creatures and items and things that Kyle had drawn. And each day that we would go, we would run off to our lunch spot called the Peanut. We'd have the best buffalo wings ever, and we would just brainstorm kind of set pieces. Like, there'll be a this, there'll be a that. Like, they'll slide in, so kind of set pieces. And so I'd take those set pieces, these drawings that he did, and just see if I could tie them together. And like, with the character that Twig, we knew who Twig was. And it's just, at that point, it's like almost playing a video game in your mind of running him around to all these other things and levels. But then they start to inform you of the new things. But I don't know that I ever had, Kyle might have created some visual rules for himself, but I didn't have a whole lot of rules of what was acceptable and not. I definitely knew, I think we both agreed that we didn't want anything to feel this world.
Right.
What like Kyle said, at one point Twig kind of looked like an otter, and not Kyle didn't draw an otter, but the shape of it, we landed on that character for a while. It was going to be the design, and the more I looked at it, I was like, I don't know. He feels a little bit like an otter, and I kind of don't want this to skew Muppets, where it feels like we're getting like odd versions of a frog or blah, blah. I wanted people. I think we both agreed that we wanted people to get lost in a world that was of its own. In the same way that you did when Brian Froud did all the Labyrinth work or the Dark Crystal work, where it's a unique world unto its own. So therefore, there might be rules, but who knows? I don't know. Kyle might have something different to say.
I mean, it goes back again to the vibe thing. I definitely, if something feels too much like it's recognizable of our world. Like there aren't going to be any like humanoids, like regular people, because that's not what this is. And I have said what I like about doing creator-owned comics, and especially what I like about this comic that we created completely, is I could be drawing something, and if I were on a different project or a licensed property, I might be like, is this right? Does this feel right? And in this one, I'm just like, this is right. Like, that's it.
Right.
So it all comes from the same place, and it all comes from lots and lots of conversations. But so I think there are some blurry boundaries, but nothing hard.
One of the things that I really appreciate is, and especially from what you guys are talking about, it's leaning heavy on the art. It feels like this world that we're being sucked into, this magical kind of thing that you created, the art and the kind of things are leading the way, which is great. I mean, sometimes you have these magical panels and there's just so many words. It kind of, makes it hard to kind of get lost in the place the setting. And I really appreciate the layouts and the panelings that really just kind of explore this world with the character. A lot of what you're saying is echoing what I'm saying, but it's just such a cool way to experience a comic, and it's very well thought out and magical. So just wanted to say thanks.
Well, we really appreciate that. I think, being in this business for 20 years and half of that just being on the art side, or a little less than half being on the art side, I was very aware of there's a lot of lifting that the artist can do without needing to say. And as now, mostly being on the writing side, there's nothing worse for me trying to show up on a panel I don't deserve to be on. Like,
right.
Kyle and Jean are just destroying these panels. They're just beautiful. I mean, and Kyle will tell you, like, when we get to the travel pages, I just say, travel through some lands. And I know Kyle's brain. I know how his brain works. So there's no reason for me to step in there and be like, here, brain, come this way, the way that I think. I think that's the beauty of, if I've learned anything from being on both sides of the line evenly, is true collaboration. Is you hear this a lot where the background of the city is the setting. It's like, yeah, but you don't let it be. You actually have to consciously let it be that. And I think the only real edits and second drafts I do of any of my stuff is deleting shit. Just like there.
That's satisfying.
There. Or sometimes I'll tell Kyle, draw this, and then I'll do this, and I'll script afterwards. And then when I see it, we just go, no,
it's good.
You nailed it. Like, you told the story. Like, there's no words needed.
Wow, it's awesome. Really funny hearing you say that about the setting, because you hear well, Gotham's a main character in this book, and what it really means is, like, on the first page you see a full splash with like 4 dialogue boxes on it, and then that's all you get. And it's like, to have that setting appear throughout, especially like dedicated in the middle to show that journey, because like Pete's saying, that's when you want to sort of look around in a book. Yeah, because in the middle, not at the beginning, you're like, it's all new. Even any issue, a middle issue or something. So. Right.
And the thing that I think Samurai Jack does that really well.
Yeah.
Yes.
He always talks about how the environment is a character, and I've watched a lot of Samurai Jack, so I kind of pick up on that too. But to expand on what Skottie was saying, it's the same for me, because I started to do the art and send it to Jean, and once I started to get Jean's stuff back, I'm like, whoa, like the storytelling possibilities have just expanded like tenfold because he's so good. So I'll start to be like, maybe put a little light thing here, and then I get it back. I'm like, whoa, that's far more than I could have imagined.
I love
and just real quick, just to mention for anybody who's listening, we're talking about the colorist who's Jean-Francois Beaulieu. Is that how you pronounce that?
Beaulieu. Yeah.
Beaulieu.
We just figured this. I worked with him for 17 years, and I just figured out 2 weeks ago it's Beaulieu. Because I said, I'm
just in the right time.
I was like, I'm ruining this, right? And he goes, yeah, you're ruining it every time.
Yeah. So, and it really is stunning, the colors. I was going to bring that up next, just the coordination between your art and the colors there, because having these naturalistic backgrounds, and like we were looking at this in the live stream here for anybody who's listening on the audio podcast later, you just see these incredible huge mountain creatures who are in browns and grays and with little green creeping up, and then you have Twig who's blue just popping against that. So it's so important for the storytelling as well.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about this a little bit, but like, what is the coordination like? Are you are changing things and sort of tweaking the storytelling a little bit as you go based on the colors?
Oh, because I understand the possibilities, it causes me to think beyond just what I have the ability to do. An example here, I'm going to spoil the last page of the first issue, but here's an example. When I turned this in, I turned in the inks with a green line right here, and I was like, there's light shining in from a window or whatever. And this is and that would not have occurred to me if I hadn't seen 20 pages before that of him like just nailing it over and over and over again. And the further we go, the more stuff like that there is.
Yeah, when that page came in, I was like, oh, you nailed it, Kyle. Great job. And then, like you said, like Kyle did the line, but Jean brings it back. And that, again, is the sign of true collaboration where everybody's skill set, everybody's leaving enough room for everybody to just dunk all day. and when you have somebody like Jean, I mean, the great thing is over all these issues is to have watched Kyle realize, ooh, I don't have to like, not a bad thing, but you don't have to work so hard when you work with somebody as talented as Jean, because you understand that he's going to bring lighting and mood and context through color temperature to really take you on a storytelling ride that sometimes you don't get through comics where you're just on the grind, right? Like when you're just rolling. Jean's just a brilliant storyteller in his own right. So it's been awesome to watch these two over the course of 100 plus pages just really grow into like a seamless team.
I love there's clearly a lot of like enthusiasm and love for everybody working on this. I imagine it extends down to like the printer being like, and then I sent it to the staple guy and the work, the staples were in the perfect spot. I did have one question or slash comment, like talking about Twig. I feel like in so many books, especially all ages books, quote unquote, all ages books, like the main character is like learning something, but they're still good at it. And then they just get better. And it feels like with Twig, it's like he is bad at stuff, and like I feel like that it harkens back to like all these movies and content that we took in the 80s, where the main characters were bad at stuff, and then bad stuff happened. Was that a conscious choice to make him like just absolutely at sea, and where did you sort of land on that?
Yeah, I mean, really, when we started talking about who the character was, you don't want the character who is faux, like who's great at everything but just slightly insecure. Like that's just, you already know they're going to win the day. But I think we saw Twig as a character a true character looking for themselves, like knows what they want, but also is out to please people, is out to do what he thinks is expected of him. Also finds himself in a role that is not his choosing, but feels like he has to. I think these are real things that we all go through from elementary school on up, you know, where we're in our parents sign us up for T-ball and we're like, oh, cool.
And this is the easy version of baseball. And I'm still bad at it.
Right. Like, cool. This is so fun. How long is it again? 5 hours. Cool. I like it. You know, like you go through this a lot in life. And I feel like we were pretty conscious of that kind of character, like giving them some real things to overcome, and some real things to struggle with. Like, you don't want a hero doing heroic shit because he's a hero from the beginning. Like, that's a boring story, and you don't learn anything. And we're not trying to give you a message. We actually want Twig to learn something, you know, and hopefully along the way you learn something about yourself in general, but not like, hey, eat your vegetables, you know.
I mean, on that note, Skottie, you've written in a bunch of different modes over the years. You were talking about how you transitioned to becoming a writer. You've also still done some art. I think you had a variants cover recently that came out, among other things. But when you're getting into something like this, do you Do you like planning out the epic storytelling, like sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to do something that is this enormous journey? Or do you prefer sort of the more done in one, the smaller arcs? Or is it just all different skills?
Every single one's different. So Middle West was definitely, we had the majority of that thing mapped out. We might not have had each stop along the path, but we had a lot of them. And we definitely had the beginning and we had the end. I think the thing that makes TWIG so fun is it was twofold. When we first started TWIG, we thought we wanted to do the big architect story where we built the lattice work and, you know, we Game of Thrones the shit out of it and had all this guy and subterfuge and da-da-da-da. We had this huge story, and then shutdown happened. Like COVID came along, shutdown happened. We didn't know what was happening with comics. We were pretty bummed out. We weren't now working together in the studio anymore. It was just a weird time. And then I called Kyle one day and we were kind of had a conversation like, are we going the right direction with the vibe? You know, Kyle's mentioned that multiple times. We're like, are we doing what we do? Like we started this whole project as doing what we do. And you know what I don't do well? Political, like the battle between two geopolitical machines and the military industrial complex of Fraggle Rock. Like I was like, what am I doing? I'm not writing anything that I necessarily ever think about, you know, like Kyle will tell you I'm the last person to ever talk politics with anybody, even though I've got, but that's not my jam. Like that's, you know, so we really just had like a kind of like a come to Jesus moment where we're like, are we doing us? And we were, how many pages did you have done, Kyle? 10, 11?
I don't know exactly. We had like 10 pages.
We had 10.
It's pretty telling. They were all like at a council talking, like 10 pages of talking.
Right.
And
I think the only thing that was the same was TWIG was late. Like,
yeah.
TWIG was late, but there were dozens of people, like critters and things, and it was really heavy and big. And I think there's always a draw to be like, I'm gonna show everybody. Again, it's like you're like, I'm going to the dunk contest and I'm gonna freaking you have no idea. I'm gonna shatter the backboard, together, break it again. Like, but instead we had to remind ourselves like, is this where our head is now? Like the world's really scary and it's weird and we don't feel good. And are we making a book that's gonna make us feel worse? And we both were like, is it the stupidest idea ever to completely restructure this and boil it down to just the character? And once we did that, it pretty much almost felt like we threw puzzle pieces up and then they just kind of came down and there was a puzzle. Like it made sense.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then from that point, once that happened, I felt we were much more improv about it. Like,
right.
We would, while he would be working on an issue, we'd go eat lunch and be like, what about this? I don't know. This, but this, and that loops back to this. And it became like what you feel like when you were a kid and you had He-Man toys and G.I. Joe toys and even turtles, even though I'm too old to be playing with them, but I'm going to be like, that's my brothers, my little brothers. It's cool. You know,
that's so funny.
They're just going pew, pew, pew. And that's what it felt like.
You just described the difference between the original Star Wars trilogy and the prequels.
I never thought of that, but you fucking nailed it. Yeah.
That's amazing. We have a question here in the comments for you, Skottie. This is from Josh H. Does Skottie have any plans to do art in a book again?
I do. There's a project that I've been fighting for many, many years that will be my next project that I write and draw. I don't know when it is, but I got to stop having so much fun with all these guys so I can get to it. But yeah, I will draw the interiors of a book again. I just needed some time to go away, and I had been drawing interiors monthly for 17 years before I took my break. Wow. So that's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
And so I just needed a break. But I still do 1 to 2 covers a week. So I still draw a lot. Just not.
Yeah, that's a fair amount.
It's a bit.
We have another question for you, actually. This is over on YouTube. This is from Ramsey Hassan. I really dug the series of manga illustrations that Skottie Young did on Instagram. Has his son's manga fandom inspired his own work?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's been awesome to kind of watch my son's 12 now, almost 13. And a couple years ago during shutdown, he met some kids who were into manga and anime, and he really got into it. And it's kind of an avenue that I never really got into when I was younger. There wasn't a lot for us to, I'm 44. There wasn't a lot of that available, in the small town I lived in. So I kind of missed it. And it's really cool to kind of see through his eyes now, and see why he likes certain things. And hopefully I'm able to. I was just talking this weekend with Steve at Third Eye about, harnessing some of that side of the world and bringing it over and mixing it in with ours, because kids just eat that stuff up,
Yeah.
Kyle, I have one for you. I love Spread. Is there a chance you'd ever want to return to that world again?
Oh, maybe. It's coming up on, I don't know how many years it's been. It's been a long time. But it's possible. I think the comic book industry is way different than it was then. So we were able to get, I think, 5 volumes back then. And I don't know. Everything would have to fall into place, I think. But I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. And a follow-up question, just based on your background, are you more of a Gremlins 2 man than a Gremlins 1 man?
It seems like it.
Hard to argue with it.
Absolutely more of a Gremlins 2 man.
All right.
You think that's his throwaway pile of movies?
It's next to the window. He could be leaning back and just shoving it right out. We'll see what happens.
I'd race down to...
Yeah. Skottie, you also have another big epic world that you're returning to. You have I Hate Fairyland is coming back. What can we expect from that? Because I feel like that went, it was always bonkers, but it went so bonkers over the top by the end. What more is there to tell in that world?
Man, that world is, it's just so fun, because literally anything is possible, and no one ever says ugh, or that's wrong. Just holy shit, he's doing that. The challenge, the fun challenge this time around is obviously where I left her in issue 20 was she finally made it. She finally reached her goal and got back to the real world and became the adult that she had always missed being. But, like most things, we never actually want what we think we want. And it also sucks. And working in a cubicle sometimes is not super, so she actually lived in a world where everything was possible and thought she hated it. And then she's back in the real world and equally hates it. And so the challenge here is going to be able to be playing with an adult version of Gert. And how and why she gets back to Fairyland is pretty fun and kind of timely in some of the ways that we've been following billionaires recently. So, the great thing about Fairyland
she buys Twitter. Wow.
I Hate Fairyland is a way for me to be able to really play with kind of satire and parody of what's going on, because everything is kind of improv and made up on the spot. And besides kind of getting in and out of a story and having a through line, it's usually me going, oh man, Pacific Rim was awesome, I'm going to do a kaiju issue, or whatever. It's just really, and then how will Gert fit into that? Or, oh man, I love Street Fighter and this dude draws Street, and then all of a sudden let's do a Street Fighter issue with a Street Fighter comic book artist. And it's really, really fun. So I'm excited to get back to that. I think it's going to be fun because from when I started it and ended it and how many years it's been now since we got back. So if you got into Fairyland when you were 13 or 14, you're going to be almost 20 now. So you probably left comics and have come back. So it's good timing for that,
I love it.
That's funny.
And guys, you mentioned that this is maybe a little more improv-y, not necessarily the epic storytelling, but do you have a plan in terms of how long this might be? Is it 6 issues? Is it going to go 30 issues, 1,000 issues? Where are you, in there?
So this is a miniseries, so it's a 5 issue.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
So
I really need to start looking at the covers of things and reading the numbers on them.
But when I say improv, I guess I should use that term define it a little better. Kyle and I knew exactly where this ends. We had it's one of those things too where you just set the ending at the you just don't know how you're getting. It's like playing Candyland. Yeah. You don't exactly know how you might go down or chutes and ladders. You might climb up and slide back down, but you know where the ending is. And that's where the improv to me is the fun. It's like having a real improv troupe where they give you kind of some parameters, but once you get up on stage, it's just you're freestyling until you get there.
You're talking to the right guys.
Yeah.
Ironically, I hate Candyland.
Wow, that's gonna be, you just fucked up my follow-up, dude. That's what.
You're blowing up things all over the place, Justin. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Love the book. Everybody should check it out. A pleasure. And Skottie, we didn't mention this on the show, but good luck with the tree that dropped on your house right before this. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Anyway.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it dropped in my car. It's the car actually ended up being fine. I have no idea how that happened. But it's kind of heartbreaking when you have a giant, beautiful tree in your front yard. And now today I'm going to drive home and it's not going to be there. So it's kind of a bummer. Just a bummer. And then
use it to fuel your art.
My neighbor's been texting me all day telling me how much of a bummer it is.
Get out of here.
It's like, I don't even know if I can look at your yard anymore. Like,
oh,
man. Be like,
roasting neighbor.
Like if I went, like my son broke his leg today and somebody's like, man, having a broken leg sucks. I don't have a broken leg. It sucks. I have two healthy legs. You have a broken leg. Your life sucks today. And I'm like, quit telling me how
I really hate watching your son struggle.
Yeah.
Quit telling me. I'm already bummed out, man. Don't throw more bum on my bum out.
Oh man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll figure it out.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right.
So fun.
There we go. Once again, the book is called Twig. It's from Skottie Young and Kyle Strahm. The second issue comes out tomorrow from Image Comics, and it is awesome. Definitely pick it up.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
And folks, we're going to move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions.
Yeah.
And for audience questions, I see a bunch of them are already piling up here.
Piling up.
Wow. But before we get into that, why don't we, I should probably explain. If you want to ask a question, drop a question in the comments over on YouTube or ask a question here on Crowdcast. But what you drinking, guys? What you drinking?
Oh, before we do this, Pete, I left a urine sample on the corner of your desk, so just don't drink that, whatever it is.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, what you drinking,
Pete?
Oh,
no!
Oh, no!
Orange, bro? That's not good, bro.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I need to drink some water. But that's not what I'm drinking tonight. I'm drinking a little cocktail I call red wine. It's excellent. A Cahors Malbec from France.
Pete, what are you drinking over there?
Vodka and new Mountain Dew flavor called Live Wire.
Is that new?
Maybe not new.
New to Pete.
Yeah.
If it's new to Pete, it's new to Pete. That's what they said on NBC back in the day. I am drinking last week's drink, the Jungle Bird, but it was supposed to be made with pineapple gum, which is this syrup made out of pineapple. I ordered it. It didn't arrive until today, and so I made it with that. It's real good. Very different from the way that I made it last week with just pineapple juice and simple syrup. Very exciting. But I also want to give a shout out to Brett Macris, our CBC chef. We didn't mention him at the beginning of the show, but he did create a drink for this show. Specifically, originally, we were going to have guests Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino were going to be on the show. Unfortunately, they had to delay due to conflicts. Thankfully, Skottie Young and Kyle Strahm jumped in here at the last second, which is so awesome. Very excited to talk to them. Jeff and Andrea will be on the show at some point later. I think we're going to book them August, September, something like that. So look forward to that. But he did design a drink called the Little Monsters. Little Monster, based on Little Monsters. So I didn't make that this week. I made this instead, but I'm very excited to check that out. So thank you, Brett, as always. Why don't we jump over to some questions here? This is a question from Nat Townsend to kick it off. Are you excited for Miss Marvel? What will be good and bad about the show? Alex, can you send me the first 2 episodes?
Wow. He's on top
Straight
of
up
that.
there, Nat. No, I cannot send you the first 2 episodes. I will say we will be covering Miss Marvel on our Marvel Vision podcast. You can check out the first episode of that dropping at 3 a.m. tonight. So that's very exciting. And it's great. It's super fun. I think I can say that. I think you guys will enjoy it. So
I think you can say that.
Yeah. So get excited. Get stoked. We actually have a follow-up question here. Let me see if I can find it from Pablo D. Martinez. Disney Plus has both Miss Marvel and Obi-Wan Kenobi airing at the same day. What would you watch first?
Ooh, Great question. I feel like I would do Obi-Wan first because I just gotta get it and see it, and then I want to savor Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
I think just
visual feast.
Logistically, if I hadn't seen Miss Marvel, we're already in Obi-Wan, so I already feel invested in that story. So I'd watch Obi-Wan first so that I know what happens next. Then I'd go into Miss Marvel to start something new. That becomes a big problem next week when they're still running at the same time, but what you going to do? Life is wonderful.
And Alex, you watch everything at double speed, right?
Triple speed.
Oh, wow, nice. Good.
Yeah. That way I really can't understand what people are saying.
It's a horrible idea.
Pete, which would you watch first, Miss Marvel or Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm already invested in the Obi-Wan, I'm going to keep that going and then have the Miss Marvel as my little treat for later.
Pete
but
loves a treat. Pete gets his treat at 6 p.m. as well.
But maybe there's going to be a day where I'll switch it up. I don't know. What's great is when you have choices out there, depending on your days going, you can have one.
Would you say it goes Obi-Wan, all of Ted Lasso season 1 and 2, and then Miss Marvel? Or is
that's continuity order? But
exactly.
I mean, the other thing you could do is you could have your laptop going with Obi-Wan and then Miss Marvel on your TV and just watch them both at the same time. Really get it out of the way. Plus, if you do a triple speed, it's like 15 minutes and you're done with 2 episodes of television.
Yeah. Plus, I just love accomplishing things.
If you start Miss Maisel and Miss Marvel at the same time, they link up.
Yeah.
Look at Pete doing a joke we may be doing too.
We got a question here from Stray Bullet, ties into the Star Wars talk. Did midi-chlorians ruin the Force? Also, my son Brooklyn is sick, but he wanted me to come lay on the couch to watch the show. Could you guys say hi to him? Of course.
Brooklyn.
Hi, Brooklyn. Hello.
Get well soon, Brooklyn.
Yeah, you got to get those midi-chlorian levels up.
Drink fluids.
Yes. By fluids, we mean blue milk. Drink blue milk.
Great.
Nope.
If
Star
he doesn't
Wars.
know what if he doesn't get the reference, he's going to drink some very spoiled milk, Alex.
Oh no!
He probably just thinks you mean the milk after when the cereal's in the marshmallows leave that color in there.
Because he only eats blueberry.
That's right.
Right.
Wow.
Or the berries.
Oh.
See, I've never ever had blueberry or any of those Count Chocula because I grew up in a household where we had like
that's right. You're Mormon
no sugar
upbringing.
Cereals. Yeah,
me too.
Well water.
You had to go out and get
the bunch, kid.
Get the balance stick.
Got to be fast to drop the well water reference around this place, Pete. You've forgotten. Did midichlorians ruin the Force? I don't think so. I feel like this is something that I've kind of come around to, particularly while watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show, not the character. But I think it's reminded me that a lot of this continuity stuff doesn't matter if you're having fun, because a lot of the stuff is just, I feel like we've talked about this probably on previous podcasts. A lot of it is just George Lucas making shit up all the time.
Honestly, when he stopped making stuff up is when it got bad. When he had to think about it a bunch. So
yes. So yeah, most of it is just like our guests were talking about. It's improv, it's riffing. The midichlorians thing is the sort of thing yes, when the prequels come out, I was like, this is stupid and I hate this. But now I only remember midichlorians when somebody mentions them and they don't matter to the storytelling at all. So.
And yeah, I agree with you because watching Obi-Wan, I have a friend who is watching it and all he does is text me his complaints about that stuff, the continuity mismatches. And I'm just like, is this a way to live? Is this a way to do this? I don't want to hear all this. I know. We all know. We're not dumb. But so what? What would you rather this doesn't exist?
Yeah. So there you go. And Brooklyn, I hope you feel better. This is from Derek Mainhart. There are many examples of comic book artists who want to write on comics, Skottie Young being an excellent case in point. Can you think of an instance where the reverse is true, a writer who became an artist?
Ooh. Well, you've seen Tom King's covers that he posts on his... What are you going to do?
Yeah.
If you haven't, Tom King's Twitter, he will constantly post awfully drawn covers that he does for an Artist Alley and for fans. So that's very fun.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of writers who have made the transition to art, I don't think. I certainly can't think of anybody.
I mean, I feel like I'm trying to think of anyone that has done that. And I guess it's just like being an artist is such a cultivated skill. You have to put so much time and reps into it. Yeah. It would be hard to be a successful comic writer and then dedicate so much time to that, to learning to be an excellent artist as well.
This is from Kevin. What are some of your favorite examples of mood whiplash in comics, either light to dark or the reverse?
I mean, this is an example we talked about when we were talking about Twig, but Bone, I think, does that from the like light comic strippy comedy side to the much more heavy mythological side that the story sort of took on as it went on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough with like some comics. You've really got to be in that mindset to be able to kind of go down that rabbit hole with them a lot. Sometimes there'll be like DC comics that I'm like, man, I'm not feeling the dark shit right now. I got to read a couple light comics before I can kind of get ready for that. It really is just kind of like the artist has to do a good job of like getting you into this world and kind of like, you letting go of what you may want or not want or whatever. I think one of the best worlds that I really got used to was Batwoman when those like amazing panels came out. It can look really kind of like jarring, but when you kind of are ready for it or open to it, it's pretty amazing what can be accomplished on a panel on a page.
I mean, if Kevin, and maybe you can weigh in on the comments here, Kevin, if you're talking about plot, like mood whiplash that way versus the art, the first one I thought of really was, oh my gosh, Brian Posehn and Jerry Dugan on Deadpool, where they went from like raucous comedy to these really dramatic situations that were very sad with Deadpool, often in the same issue, which was very surprising. And the one that I thought of from the art perspective, which the circumstances are obviously very controversial, but just in terms of like little light to dark, the Killing Joke when Joker is taking pictures of Barbara Gordon, just the flash of the camera is so jarring in there. Obviously, the scene itself has not aged very well, but just from an artistic perspective, it's Brian Bolin, right, who does the art on Killing Joke. Just it's off-putting and upsetting, and a lot of that does come from that light and the dark, the light and the dark, the way that they're doing it. So there you go. We got a question here on YouTube.
Yeah, go and bring that shit up. Jesus.
You bummed Pete out.
Sorry, buddy. First thing I thought of.
Cheer yourself up with a couple issues of The Punisher.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
Stranger Things brought back an 80s Kate Bush single into the top 10 worldwide. What random old tune would you want Stranger Things to resurrect?
I got it right here. Big Countries in a Big Country. If you don't know that song, great fucking track from back in the day. And they were not as long lasting as Kate Bush, but great 80s band. They played like SNL once. Great stuff.
I would say Cotton Eye Joe by the Red X. I think I just looked it up. It's from 1994, but I feel like there's a portal from the Upside Down. There's like some time travel stuff coming, or like in season 5, they do a time jump to 1994, and the Duffer Brothers are like, we wanted to be in 1994, so we could really use Cotton Eye Joe by the Rednecks, that sort of thing. That'd be great.
I just sorry, that song is very triggering for me. I had a roommate in college who used to listen to that thing on repeat, and
you lived with Joe himself.
I mean, he used to wear a cowboy hat, and the dude was insane. His name was the Unseen Vegan Dream, and he used to streak tours of our college and blast Cotton Eye Joe. He was a weird dude.
Real quick,
if he was unseen, it's hard to streak.
Well, that's it's hard to catch somebody who's unseen.
Pete, you don't like the Corinthian, the Sandman character who has mouths for eyes. What do you think is worse, Corinthian, mouth for eyes, or Cotton Eye Joe, who has cotton for eyes?
Both horrible choices for eyes. I like the eyes and the eye
choices.
Yeah,
Did you choose your eyes?
I did. Yeah, in the beginning when you're asked what you want.
The beginning? I have so many
What is
follow-up
this?
questions.
Dropping some big eggs.
But I don't know if we have time. This is from Josh H. Are there any comic IPs made into TV movies that you hope would be redone right? Looking at you, FF and Preacher.
Oh,
Wait, what happened? Wait, shots fired what? Shots fired say what?
Yeah. So are there any comic IPs that you wish would be done again properly this time?
Preacher was done perfectly. That was so awesome.
Was it?
Bananas good. What are you talking about? Was it? We did a whole fucking podcast on it.
I know.
Cassidy was perfect casting. What the?
Cassidy was perfect casting. I agree.
Go after yourself.
Generation X TV movie. Probably do a better
No,
version
also
of that.
perfect. Also perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know they're doing a remake of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That movie was pretty shitty. I feel like they shouldn't make another movie of it. That was the thing that was confusing to me. That's something that seems tailor-made for a TV show in particular. So, I don't know.
Because it was based on a sequential art form.
Yep.
Nice. Tracks.
This is from Michael Tillman. Did I miss your guys' take on the new Willow trailer? Can't wait for the Ufgood.
Yes. I'm a huge Willow fan.
Huge
you
Willow
can't
head.
feed a baby Blackroot. It's something my children don't touch this stuff.
And your kids keep coming up in the background. Are they trying to get their Blackroot or what's
Yeah,
happening?
because I keep it right here because I eat Blackroot all day. I love it.
Mardigan.
So yeah, they keep coming and trying to get Blackroot. Puts hair on your chest. Thank you, Michael Tillman. I love Willow. I thought this trailer was great. Shout out to Migosh making a huge presence in this Willow trailer. I was like, yo, when you bring it back, Migosh, whose whole claim to fame was like, you're going on an adventure, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I don't do this. Go, Willow. Go do your thing. Patience, Willow. Courage, Willow. Migosh, take a nap.
But I mean, I'm worried because can you do Willow without Mad Max? Mardigan was like the best, just so fun.
I mean, Val Kilmer, he's not really acting anymore, but he certainly pops up. So maybe we see an older Mad Mardigan just hanging out somewhere. That would be cool. I also think, yes, you can. It feels like this trailer it's opening up the world, getting into some larger, heavier stuff potentially. But if they could capture the spirit of the original Willow, and if you haven't watched this, it's on Disney Plus right now. They are pushing it front page because since the trailer came out, watch this movie. 2 recs on Disney Plus. Willow, Rocketeer. If you're haven't watched those movies, crush it.
Wow, just throwing Rocketeer out, huh?
Another one of my favorite movies.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum, Pete, I don't know if this is breaking news for you, but Ted Lasso Season 3 is the final season.
We all know that. True
I told that Pete, but when they announced Season 2, they also announced Season 3 would be the last, and I literally broke Pete's heart when I said that.
Yes, just what's his name? Brandon.
Coach Beard.
No, not Coach Beard. Guy who plays angry guy on Ted Lasso.
Oh, you're talking about I know who you're
Brett
talking about.
Brett Goldstein, there you go. He did an interview saying, pretty definitively we're writing it as if it's the last season. So what are you going to do about this travesty, Pete?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. In television, sometimes you get to choose when you go out and sometimes they choose for you. So if the whole idea, from what we understand, is when they were pitching the idea, they pitched a 3-season arc, and if that's what it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. I'd rather them go out telling the story they want to tell than dragging something on and it not be as special. So I'm going to be thankful for what I got, and I can just hit play and watch them again.
Oh, really? I hear after Season 3 airs, they're taking away the play button. Is that going to be a problem? Pete, it sounds like you've been in therapy for this. Like the way you just dropped that, it was like a composed statement.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I haven't been talking to my therapist about this the whole time. Cool.
And that is it for your audience questions. Folks, we are going to move on to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right.
Wow, you got a first hand up guy.
First hand up is Kev. Do we have somebody, or are we going to go?
Kevin is somebody. Are you not going to call on Kevin?
You treat Kevin with the respect?
I'm not. I'm just saying sometimes, Zelbs has a whole spreadsheet, and sometimes ahead of time it's decided. So that
I did not spread my sheet. I did not spread my sheet this time. I'm going to bring in Kevin.
Feel like I agree with Nat. It's fucked up the way you're treating Kevin.
Yeah, I feel like Kevin probably has some new puppet he wants to play with and he wants to show it off. That's my suspicion here.
Oh, creepy. Well,
I haven't seen Kevin move that fast in years.
Well, we'll see. I've definitely invited him in. So we'll see what's going on. What's going on with the old Kevster.
This could truly be anything.
This is when the music really plays out here.
Oh.
Oh, Kevin's puppet is Kevin himself.
That's the ultimate
did
puppet.
Not bring a puppet this time, but I will say that I did just finish a book that I found out about on this podcast.
Ooh.
The Bible.
Was it the Bible?
Oh,
no. You know what? Lock and key. It occurred to me that in the spirit of reading Rainbow, which its 39th anniversary.
What's happening?
I should do this properly. Hi, I'm Kevin. Do you like books with words? I sure do. I read Earth to Andrew O. Bleckman by Jane Breskin Zalbin.
Why are you doing this?
What is happening?
So what he's bringing up is a book that we mentioned on the podcast. I teased that there was a book where my mom had drawn me as a kid. I didn't want to say what the name was. And everybody said,
"You legend."
Yeah, everybody. If you think that book came out and I was mercilessly made fun of in school, you'd be correct. So thank you, Kevin, for bringing up my childhood trauma.
Sorry, real quick, can we get that closer to the screen, Kevin?
Oh, are you taking a picture?
I just gonna get a quick screen grab of that.
Oh,
great.
wow.
Put it even closer, his face closer to the thing.
Yeah,
that's really
get
good.
In there.
That's what we want. Click, 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 click. Gonna hold on to that.
What's going on in the background? It looks like a slap fest. It's like somebody slapping their grandfather in the background of that picture.
Yeah, the plot of the book is about the time I slapped my grandfather.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
No wonder she drew you so poorly.
It's about this kid who is mercilessly taunting everybody around him with his cheap puns. So the old vaudevillian who lives upstairs agrees to teach the kid some real jokes. Oh, and he also has the hots for the kid's grandma.
What happened?
Alex looks like he needs to go to therapy now.
Maybe a little bit.
Oh my god!
Here's the thing.
I can't believe Kevin just got Alex. I love it.
What is happening?
The thing is, all right, what this is kind of about, I guess, is that there's a comedian named Henny Youngman, an old comedian who I was super obsessed with, loved his joke books. We went to see his show when I was a kid, and he gave me a button, and I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. I was not in love with his wife. I did not have a crush on her. That's not true. That's all made up. So even though it's me on the cover and there's some details, I did fuck a bunch of grandmas, but that's not his wife. Not his wife.
No, it's the vaudevillian who has the crush on Andrew's grandma.
Oh. Well, I misunderstood the plot.
Never mind that whole thing.
That never happened. I'm kidding. We never fucked any grandmas.
Yeah.
I'm not Pete. Let's turn it back to Pete. Come on. Come on.
Oh no! When I say I read the book, I read the entire thing this morning.
Okay, so
yeah, it's a short book.
So it's basically you wouldn't let puns go, and so your mom kind of wrote this book to be like, hey man, you got a real pun problem here?
I don't know. Growing up with an author is an interesting problem. That's, I guess, all I'm going to say about it.
Interesting problem.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh my God.
At a certain point, perhaps the author runs out of their life to write about and starts writing about your life. I'm just saying.
Oh wow. Is your mom Jughead from Riverdale?
Oh
I mean, perhaps that's why I don't like that. I don't know.
Oh my God.
This has been the most I've learned about Alex in decades.
Ever.
Kevin, what did you think about the book, though? What did you think about the book?
I enjoyed it. You know, it's a nice low stakes book. It's I think it's
Low
if Judy
stakes.
Blume wrote about Jewish New Yorkers.
Wow.
I think that's probably the vibe she was going for. So
nice.
glad to
Put
hear
that
it.
on the cover.
Great.
Wow.
So I think you owe me $25 in Midtown Comics. No, Kevin, if I remember correctly. No, I'm going to give it over to Pete to do
All
trivia
right,
here.
Give him the
Pete.
money. He earned it. He earned the money already.
Way to be. You already won. You don't really have to pick anything for this. But here we go. Today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Fred Ward, R.I.P. Please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. DC's Black Label Aquaman comic has been dubbed blank. Is it A, a bid for tuna, B, a psychedelic cosmic horror, or C, Wilfred Brimley? So is it A or is it B, which is the correct?
I'm going to go with B.
B
Although I
is
did
correct.
appreciate the pun in A.
There you go. Speaking of puns. All right. So question number 2. Marvel's next big event is called the blank. Is it A, St. Patrick's Day, B, Judgment Day, or C, Patrick Kilpatrick? So it's either A, which doesn't make sense, or it's B.
I'll go with B again.
B is
Nice.
correct. Judgment Day, the next big Marvel
St.
event.
Patrick's Day would be a fun event for Marvel.
You think so? It'd be a fun event.
And I
It'd be
also want to see if
different.
I can guess what C is going to be on the next one.
All right,
Yeah,
Kev,
I
we'll
feel
see.
like Kevin he already knows the movie. He's way ahead of you.
We'll
Honestly,
see,
how
we'll
many
see.
events in from DC and Marvel have been called Judgment Day? I think we've covered Judgment Day, also Terminator. So let's do St. Patrick's Day.
All right, here we go. Last one. What is returning to comics this September? Is it A, Creep Show, B, Sleep Show, or is it C, Marv Albert?
Oh, I was thinking you were going to go with Kate Mulgrew.
No, I almost did, but I didn't.
He likes funny names like
Yep.
Marv.
Yep. So it's either A or you're completely wrong.
I'll go with A.
It is correct. Creep Show coming back to comics in September. And Kev, do you know what all 3 C answers are?
Oh, it's going to be Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins.
That's right. That 1988 hit or 85 hit? It's 85. It's 85.
Yeah, it's 85 because they, the Statue of Liberty was still in all of the scaffolding.
Look at this. This guy's into
Wow.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin, before we let you go, just you haven't tracked down the Kama Sutra book my parents released, did you? Because that would get weird. That would get weird.
No response. Okay, so you're going to get a $25 gift card. Yes, you're going to get a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. Always good to see you. Have a good night.
See you.
And I'll just mention to you guys that what Kevin just did was double traumatizing. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but the way that he started it off, because I also, as a kid, got rejected by reading Rainbow.
Oh, wow.
Wait, rejected in what capacity?
I tried out for Reading Rainbow,
You
recommended my
auditioned?
best book. I auditioned for Reading Rainbow. And they didn't take me.
Like,
it stung.
Yeah, I bet. Wow, no wonder you've been chasing that Reading Rainbow hit ever since.
I was like, I'll recommend some books.
For the rest of my life.
Oh, my God.
Speaking of which,
funny.
as we all know, comics are coming out all the time. They're all awesome. There's a bunch of them that are coming out this week. Pete, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Poison Ivy #1 and Dark Knights of Steel #7.
And I'll mention, since Pete didn't give this detail, for anybody who's excited about Miss Marvel, G. Willow Wilson, who was one of the co-creators of Miss Marvel, is the new writer on the Poison Ivy series. So that's a fun little side tie-in. Justin, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
A lot of stuff, fun stuff out there this week. I'm going to give it up for a book I've loved for a long time, coming back with a brand new arc, That Texas Blood, number 14.
Knew it.
This issue, I'm assuming, probably has a focus on maybe a little more horror stuff. So I'm excited for their perfectly tinged version of that.
And I'm going to give 2 shout out here. One I'm really interested to check out is Fortnite X Marvel Zero War #1. Just because Christos Gage's Fortnite DC Comics book was so good, I'm curious to see if it holds up here. And the other one I'll give a shout out to is The Ward #1, a Dark Horse Comics book about a supernatural hospital ward by Kevin Scott. Kevin Scott is a big Star Wars author guy. He had a big shine up over at Star Wars Celebration a couple of weekends ago and is going to be on our live show in a couple of weeks to talk about this book. So I'm very interested to check it out. And folks, that is it for this week's show.
Yeah.
A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Skottie Young and Kyle Strahm for coming on. Check out TWIG #2 from Image Comics is coming out tomorrow in comic book shops. That's another one that we're going to have in our Stack podcast. We're going to talk about that. So very exciting. Next week on the show, we are going to have Marika Makula and Atmaja Pandya are going to be here to talk Slip. Also, Ruben Najara is going to be here to talk about the best Archie comic ever. We have a bunch of other podcasts that are rolling out right now. Woo! Let's hear it for the boys. Our boys podcast rolled out the first 3 episodes this weekend. It's going to be coming out every Friday, tying in with the new season of the show. Also, the Doom Room, our Doom Patrol podcast, rolling out weekly on Thursdays, where you can get every single episode at patreon.com/Comic Book Club right now. Riverdale After Dark, our Riverdale podcast, after that airs. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast, recapping Miss Marvel on Wednesdays now, so check that out. As mentioned, patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and all the shows we do. Subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice at Comic Book Live on Twitter, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, good night.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Hate the look.
Jimmy Gaywood. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
You have to know how to read to audition for Reading Rainbow House.
You should have told me that back